everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Brain, Justin. How are you all? Disembodied Brain Justin thought we were finished with the Half-orc, and we had a last-minute switcheroo. We were not finished with the Half-orc. Oh, hey, I totally forgot my intro. Wait, there was no sploosh. 1 second, I'm going to sploosh you all, okay? Get ready? Ready? 3, 2, 1, sploosh! Oh, wait, no, there it is. I had a sploosh. Oh, there we go. See, I was shooting video, and so I was like, wait, something's wrong. And so I thought I deactivated both my toolbox pro tips and my sploosh. But apparently we've got double splooshed today. So yeah, double sploosh. Just because it gave me cover to replace my Reaper logo in my desk field. So yeah, it's one of those Tuesdays. How is everybody? Hey, mighty Jabberwock! Happy Subiversary, happy Subiversary, happy Subiversary, happy Subiversary. 12 months. Double splooshed for your happy Subiversary. Indeedy. Hey, Nomadzic. My sinuses are already going, so if I have to, sneeze several times during the course of this stream, that's why. It's because the state is attacking me. Allergies. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Oh boy, we have a Half-orc wizard. What on earth are we going to do with this? I've been sitting here, fighting in my head about the leather, so I think we're going to try something today. I don't normally go with light leather on a model. I don't like it in general. I feel like a lighter colored leather often distracts. But in this case, where did I put my polished leather? I just had it here because I was using it yesterday. And now I have somehow stuffed it somewhere. There it is. Yay! But yeah, I don't normally like light colored leather. I feel like light warm colors tend to distract the eye, and so you could get into trouble that way. But yeah, this is trademark Anne Red. Actually, this is a throwback HM to the red I used to do a long time ago. 20 years ago, I was doing this red, and I was pretty well known for it. Nobody else was doing red like me. This one isn't brought up to the full potential yet, but it's there. I mean, the orange is there on the bottom. The hint is really to keep your shadows dark and to bring everything up so that you get that velvet look, which I really like. But I think I'm going to try a warmer, lighter leather on this and see. Now, when you do that, you kind of limit your ability you can't really go gold with your fixtures. You've got to go silver. Because otherwise your light leather is going to be just too close to the gold. It's all going to run together. It's going to be really visually confusing. So, yeah, I mean, it's the obvious choice, right? If you want that red, blue, yellow. I was actually going more for a red, blue, green, so I really hesitated there, and I was thinking going dark. But then I was like, well, I've got that dark red. It's all going to disappear. Or it's going to all be the same tone, so I'm going to try to go really, really pale. I haven't actually used polished leather for leather ever, but we're going to try it. But like I said, that means going silver with the fixtures because you want contrast. Also, I watched a really good 2D art video yesterday. That was a very interesting take on learning to art. And a lot of the things that he talked about is kind of like the order to learn in, which I'm always a fan of deconstructing the learning process. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today and how it applies to miniature painting. And I'll also tell you guys where the video actually is. So you can, if you want to watch it, you can watch it and draw your own conclusions. God's forbid. Shadow Raven has arrived, everybody. Put up the Raven flag. Raven in residence. Alrighty. So we've got our nice blue, and so obviously we're going red. I so would have liked to just kind of stay with I like green, blue, red. So I may play down the yellow on this. We'll see. But anyway, we're going to start with a color that I've not actually ever used for leather before, polished leather. Usually I use that for everything but leather. Usually it's a great skin tone starting color if I'm going to mix my skin tones. That with a tiny bit of red in it and white, and you've got, ta-da, a great skin tone. I'll talk about that in a PDF at some point. All right, let's see here. Let's pop some water in that. I'm going to put a thin layer over the top of my sketch, because as you guys remember, I did a black and white, sketch on this to kind of bring everything out so that we could see it. So I'm going to go and thin it till it's about a 2-to-1 and kind of judge whether that's thin enough. This is a fairly translucent paint, so it should be thin enough. And by thin enough, I mean thin enough so that the white will still show a much lighter color and the black will show a much darker color underneath the paint. Because if you're using an underpainting technique like this, you actually want to use your paint more translucent, not cover. You don't want coverage. Coverage is just going to lose all your underpainting. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Jabberwock, if you can remember red, yellow, blue, and green, orange, purple, you don't really have a question on what to use with stuff, right? That gives you a good start, and then you just elaborate from there. Like, never feel like you're just using a cop-out color scheme when you go red, yellow, blue, because as you have seen from the various models I have painted, you don't have to go with a bright red, a bright yellow, and a bright blue. You can go with a kind of blue-gray and a really dark red and, a brownish yellow, which is what we're doing here. So that polished leather colors is very much the yellow leather. It's technically a little bit of a yellow leather shadow. Tanned leather would be a good color to use with this as far as the mid-tone. And then amber gold or golden blonde for the highlight. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to, we're going to wing it. So let's see. I think this is going to be good enough because if I pull it over my palette, you can see that where it is thin, I can see through it. This means that it's going to color, see that it colors the palette, like it's not totally see-through. So it's going to color these white parts a pale gold. And then the darker parts and where it pools are going to be more this, more like the key color, like the actual color of the paint. So this is actually a great layering consistency for this paint. This is the consistency I kind of look for with layering, maybe a little thinner. But you want it to be quite thin when you pull it thinly across the palette. And this is where the well palette is, again, a good, not better than, but I think is slightly better than the wet palette for this when you're judging your consistency. So again, this is why I tell people that if you're having trouble with your paint consistency, go to a well palette so that you can actually work with the paint at a consistent consistency, and you can do tricks like this to kind of judge how thin really is my paint. Is it going to pool the same color, or is it going to be really light? Can I see the palette through it? Is it totally invisible on the palette? In which case I've got, a glaze or something, close to it. Stuff like that. So I'm going to use my DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size 1 because it's a good size for this. I'm going to actually have a little extra paint. See how my tip is not razor sharp. I'm going to get in focus. Focus. There. And I'm going to pop this out of frame so we can see. Alrighty. Nobody's talking. So, actually going to use a little bit heavy on this. That's going to be a piece of jewelry. So I'm actually, with big pieces of jewelry, I mean, normally I would say just paint over the top like I did on this one up here. But with big pieces of jewelry, when you know it's going to be a different color, just back off and just paint around it. So you can do either. You could paint this yellow color, this leather color over the whole thing and just come back and touch up for your fixtures, or you could just kind of avoid the jewelry like I am doing if you feel like it. Now, even this is covering up, like you can see some of the lights still coming through, like you can see the underpainting. But the more layers of this you put on, even one additional layer is going to impact that greatly. So you kind of have to figure out, like, your marriage between what's the best combo between like getting a strong color over your underpainting and maybe covering up a little bit too much of your underpainting. I mean, it's not a huge crisis if you have to go back in and paint on highlights, but you know, I guess it depends on the purpose of your underpainting. Like if the purpose of your underpainting is what we were doing, which is really we wanted to make sure we knew what everything was on the model, then yeah, you could totally not worry too much about covering up your underpainting, go back in and highlight. You know what everything is, so you've accomplished your purpose. But if your purpose is really to kind of speed paint and be able to not have to do as much work because you underpainted, then you want to maybe not go so heavy-handed. Hello, Calstaff. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hot day here, which actually makes me happy. I feel like it's been a very cold spring here. Get that blorf out of there. Sometimes when working with a thinned paint, you will blorf. Just rinse out your brush and come back and correct it right away. Saves you a little extra time. So we've got our belt there. And again, you can see that where I'm putting the thinned paint over the white areas, it's much lighter, and where it's over the black areas, it's much darker. So let me get close. So what I can do, and what I kind of did up top, up above in this area, is I actually put an extra layer of the brown over the black, actually, to blend it a little bit more and bring more brown in. See? I'm still keeping my highlights. I'm not going over them very much, but actually bringing in more color into my shadows. Bringing my shadows up a little bit. And this, again, depends on how dramatic your paint scheme is going to be. If you want a really dramatic paint scheme, you got to leave those heavy shadows. So just bringing in my color. I'm pretty happy with this color, actually. It stands out from the red, but it's not as disruptive as I had feared it would be. So if I'm very careful with my highlighting, I think this will work just great. I'm going to do the bag, the big bag. And then we'll back out, kind of look at it. I also forgot that I wanted some of that blue or accent color down here on the dagger hilt, so I'm going to need to deal with that. Here I'm going to go over, I think, everything. I can go back in and get that flower design. Sometimes when it's just really intricate, but you know the thing is going to have, like, it's all going to be brown except for a small part. It's just easier to go over the whole darn thing with your it's essentially a heavy wash, I guess. Layering consistency and wash consistency are very, very close. And usually it's not even the consistency, but the like how you change the paint to make it a better wash, like by adding brush on sealer, which I'm always telling you guys to do, or wash medium or matte medium. That's what really makes a good wash. But the consistency, as far as like how much paint to water ratio, is very similar. So that's how it looks just with a quick covering coat over the underlying sketch. Which looks great, actually. I think I'm going to back out. Yeah, so David always says, you know, hold the model at arm's length. For me, it's like zoom out on the camera. It's essentially the same thing, right? But I can also just hold the model out at arm's length, take my glasses off so I can actually see, and kind of judge if you can see what things are. Like where things are, what things are. Can you see that there's, you know, details there? Or does it all kind of blend together in one big bundle? Like, David is fond of saying that, you know, a tabletop model, like a competition level model should still look good on the tabletop, is essentially the thesis. So you still want contrast on your high level model. Your high level model on a tabletop should still look pretty awesome. And then when you pick it up, it should look even more awesome. Whereas your tabletop model looks awesome on the tabletop, but then when you pick it up and look at it real close, you're like, oh, okay, it's tabletop model. So yeah, we did a conversion on the staff, and this has been a good model. She's been very different from other stuff I've done. Oh no, I have to touch up her boob. We got a little bit of blue-gray there. But anyway, all right, so that'll be fine because I have to do blue-gray on the dagger. And I'm probably, part of me wants to kind of take an olivey green and do that detail. Which I may do. I do want that blue there. Yeah, I think that's about right. Interesting. I may do this on the hair. I was thinking about taking the hair brown. But I may do actually, more of a russet brown wash over this and then highlight it with this. I don't know. Maybe I'll do this and then see what I can do. Maybe I'll just try to start it this way. Yeah, I think this is going to be too yellow for sure. But I can take it down. Like, you can always go and tune stuff, so don't be afraid to just paint over and see. I'm doing the back for a reason. Oh, I forgot her little ear there. There's always little ears sticking out of the hair, and it's always a little bit weird. Like, technically the ears should not be that far out, in my opinion. But it's a thing, and so... yeah, that's going to be too light for her hair. So I will go with russet on her hair then, if we decide to go brown. I'm going to rinse up a little bit of russet, actually. And I'm going to keep the kind of golden hue on more like the upper parts. But yeah, I thought about just black hair, which would be the kind of the standard, but I decided I didn't want to go with that. I wanted more warmth up top. The problem with really black skin or really black hair is that unless it's really shiny black hair, in which case you can totally pop the eye up there, but otherwise it can be hard to draw attention to that part of the model, and you always want attention around the face. It's always important. So I'll have to come back in with some olive for that ear. And I'm just going to paint this over the areas where I can see there was black. A lot of black. To bring it down a bit. May just go over the whole thing. Not convinced. Yeah, I don't want those light highlights. Let's just knock it out. Knock it out. Boom. And because russet brown covers so well, there's really no problem. I probably want to shade this with blackened brown. Yeah, it's a little bit better. So again, blocking in some of the areas that we have not yet painted to try out a color and see how it works. Yeah, the russet brown really goes well with olive. And I like it as a match, that hair color with that skin color. I will shade it a bit and highlight it a bit. But at least we've got kind of some brown hair in there. It also, I think, makes her look a little more human again. Different hair colors other than black, because black is so common for depicting orcs. I think that giving her a more human hair color gives her more of that half-orc vibe. Yeah, that's a nice thing, is Justin usually puts the name and the item number into makes it easily searchable. So All right, so there. I do want to add a little bit of white to this leather color and pop it up a bit. Like I said, you could use any like tanned leather from the original golden light leather colors from the core are really great colors to highlight this polished leather with, like tanned leather 9031, and then you've got amber gold and golden blonde. All of those are good colors. But I do like to typically just add white for a lot of my highlighting. Or if I'm looking at a warmer light source, I add a little bit of yellow and white, but this color is already so yellow. And those of you who have watched my video I put out yesterday on the Patreon know already how yellow this color gets when you add white. So given that, I don't really need more yellow to get a really nice warm highlight. A planar crossroads. A wild planar crossroads appears. Poof! Planar's gotta be one of those weird kind of Pokemon. Like, definitely, because she is a planar crossroads. By definition. Maybe she's a shadow Pokemon. I don't know, what kind of Pokemon are you, Planar? Are you a fire or water? Hello. Sorry, I'm Pokemoning at you. There are some people you just look at them and you know that if they were a Pokemon, they would be a particular type of Pokemon. If there was a Pokemon that talked all the time, I would be that. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit of this. I don't want a lot, but I want to re-emphasize a little bit of my lighter areas. And this is the time also, if you're working on a big leather surface, now is the time to start putting in texture as you start to add highlights. I'm not going to bother with texture on this. This is such a small thing, and for a bag that's tightly tooled like this, that has a very defined shape, you're usually not looking at a very relaxed leather pattern, in my opinion. If you wanted to make it look like suede, you could stipple, but even then, getting the stipples fine enough can be difficult. The bigger the model you're working on, the more room you have to add texture. So adding just a little bit of definition around there. I'll also mix up some brown liner or walnut, your choice, at this point. I think I'm going to go with walnut because it's so dark that I need the really dark line. But just to make sure I don't lose those shadows, the lining. Because when you're doing all this over the top of the stuff you originally set up with black and white, it's easy to lose the black and white. You wouldn't think so, but it really is. Because acrylic is, even acrylic like Master Series that has a natural transparency, it covers so well, comparatively speaking. It's not truly translucent, not ever, because pigment is opaque. So even the most see-through pigments have more opacity than a dye or something. We are filling in a lot of our orc today, our half-orc. Oh yeah, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the cool video I saw. Every once in a while I go and watch a 2D, like a traditional art video on YouTube, because I find some really good insights there, especially into teaching sometimes. Kriniko, I don't know, sometimes I think you're a fire Pokemon because when you are covered in water in Scotland, you are so unhappy. But then you also grow a lot of green things, so you could be a plant Pokemon. I don't know. It's really hard to say. Maybe you're a water Pokemon and you're just sad when you have too much water. Alright, let's see here. The other thing we could do with this is we could take this golden color and we could make these horns golden, like kind of a yellow bone. Which normally I wouldn't do because I'd probably go for a bronze fixture here, but since all the rest of my metal is going to be silver, I probably should be consistent. You don't have to be consistent, but I like repeating colors over the course of the model. And if she's honestly, you know, like, if she's got enough money to have such a nice little ensemble with little decorative bits and stuff like that, I kind of have to believe she would match if she could. You like the sun? Plant Pokemon then. Awesome. Hello, Splat. Alright, let's get that mapped in. So when you're getting to this point in the model, you really, of course, you know exactly what you're doing, more or less. You're like, okay, I kind of know, based on the color decisions I have already made, I know where I'm going, right? Like, the leather was a big question mark, but now that I've got the leather nailed, now I know what everything else is going to be. Because it's like, well, I'm using silver jewelry, so I'm going to use a silver fixture, you know, or steel or silver fixture up here, and you know, I just used dark brown for her hair, so I should also work some of that dark brown into maybe the, even if the staff shaft is like black, I want to work it into the highlights on the staff. Well, let's see here. There we go. Ah, there we are. I like this color scheme. I like how it's coming out. So now let's take our lighter color, our white plus polished leather color, this pretty color that we made. It's close to amber gold. It's maybe a little more yellow. Probably quite a bit more yellow. Just because polished leather has so much yellow in it. So that's an example of what you could do if you didn't want such a vibrant color. Like if you were working on a more muted color scheme and you wanted your leather to not be quite so bright yellowy, you could go with amber gold instead. It would tone it down just a little bit and it would still be fine with the polished leather. So just touching up some highlights here on upper surfaces to bring out the details again. I'm infinitely distracted today. It's one of those days. So it's one of those clickbaity titles. It's like 6 steps to draw anything, but it's not like, it's actually not about like actually drawing a particular thing. It's more like a philosophy of learning how to art. And it's by a brand. I don't know if this is the guy who always does it because he has his own brand. I think it's one of those art YouTube channels that gets various like artists to do series for them. So the video or the people putting out the video are Proko, Proko, which I've seen them before putting out different art videos. And I don't remember which guy this is, but he's done work for Skyrim, and he's done a lot of concept artwork. Like he does a lot of concepts for video game companies and stuff like that. But it's essentially kind of his philosophy of like becoming a better artist and where you start and what you work towards. So he has kind of a pyramid of how to learn. And he did it because, and I see this in miniature painting all the time, you learn the basics, and then right away you try to catapult into something really complex. And people learning 2D art do this all the time, too. So it's just a human thing. We like to skip over the intermediate stages. But his point was, if you take your time over the intermediate stages, then you're in a much better position to actually really nail the complex stuff. So here's his little pyramid. I wrote it down. So it starts with structuralization, goes to manipulation, observation, education, imitation, and the last step is actually imagination, being totally free to do whatever you want. And it's kind of a pyramid structure. So the base of everything is structuralization, and what that is your core techniques. So for him, for drawing anything, it's going to be learning to draw things like cylinders and spheres and boxes, learning perspective, learning, the fundamentals of how to draw basic shapes. And the analogy for miniature painting would be learning your basic techniques, learning to layer, learning to wet blend, learning to apply a wash, how to get a smooth base coat, learning lining. So that if you're working on a very small model, you can still have, sharp details. Developing your brush control, stuff like that. Those are all like mechanical techniques, right? That you would want to learn. Just like, the old masters used to make their students just learn technique, like really into just technique for a while. That's the equivalent with mini painting, actually getting into all that. A lot of people, when they learn miniature painting, they will kind of learn the basic and they'll try it a little bit, and then they'll just immediately try to do something complicated. Like I see this over and over and over, where you kind of learn layering and then you decide, I'm going to do a big NMM blade, or something like that. You just decide you're going to go for it, which is fine and all. But his point is less that that's a problem, but more that you're really shortchanging yourself if you do that. Like you're skipping over an opportunity to really, essentially to really develop your ability so that it gives you an even better starting point to get, to reach your goals later. So we all like our instant gratification. And we're all excited when we see stuff like OSL and, and NMM and really well done miniatures. And we're like, I'm going to try that, right? Even though I'm new, I'm going to try it. And, go ahead, but don't forget to go back and take a step back and make sure your fundamentals are there. So the next step that he says is manipulation, which when you're drawing is learning to manipulate the cones and the boxes and the spheres and the cylinders and all of those things that you learned the basics of. Now you learn how to curve those things, how to angle those things, how to work with a block of those things kind of sitting on top of each other, all wibbly wobbly. Yep, there you go. Thanks, Quindy. And in miniature painting, what you're working with there is kind of like, oh, okay, so I know how to layer. Now let's start thinking about light. Let's actually layer so that our light source is coming from a different direction. Let's apply layering to texture and not just to trying to get smooth. It's manipulating your brush strokes, manipulating your paint, working with, thinner glazes, or working with, maybe I'll do a spot wash. Maybe I'll do a tiny wet blend. Maybe I'll do, you're manipulating the basic things you learned, and you're learning to do them in a broader sense, right? So for us, that means you're getting really good at your techniques, right? You're learning how to adapt your techniques to all the different things you're doing. Like, I could do a couple things when I'm blending this cheek. I could wet blend it in a very small area, or I could glaze it. It's also learning color, right? So maybe when you start with your structuralization, you're using triads. But then when you get to the manipulation point, you start doing more like me, where you just add white to build a highlight. And maybe you start learning a selection of colors that you like to just add to a color to make a shadow. So getting a little more comfortable with mixing would come under manipulation. So then, once you're there, then you're at observation. This is where you're like, okay, well, I can do a lot of techniques really well, but I'm kind of dissatisfied with how real or how imaginative my stuff is. I'm going to start observing stuff in real life and kind of drawing from it. Like when I sit there and take an image and actually try to work my painting from it, whether it's a leather texture or the Sphinx, where we used an actual bird to base her feathers on and kind of looked at how that worked. So observation is starting to look at things in your surroundings and use them to get ideas to apply to your art and to really look at them, to really study them. So like when I tell you guys, if you're trying to learn non-metallic metal, go out into your world. And when you are out in your world at the grocery store or driving or taking your walk, when you see a metal object, stop and really look at it. Just really look at it. Look at where the highlights are coming from. Look at the shape the highlights are. If it's a lamppost, you notice the highlights are going to be long and narrow, right? And just kind of observe. Start observing things in your environment, because when you do that, eventually it's going to click. It's going to really click, and you'll internalize it, and you can use it in your painting. So that's the third step. So then you go to education. And for him, that's where you start focusing on the stuff that you really are interested in. So if you are And it can vary, right? Because you're going to be interested in a lot of things over the course of your career. So this is where I kind of feel like it's not a triangle, but it's like you start as kind of a trapezoid and then you get these little spikes all along the top. But education is where if you like want to become a master at painting horses, if you want to become really good at faces, if you want realistic eyes, maybe you want to paint really good animals, like really realistic animals, like I did for a long time. So then you're going to start looking, you're going to use observation again, but you're going to focus. Instead of just observing the world, you're going to focus on observing and educating yourself about this thing that you're really into. So like some artists very much go into the human form. Others go into animals. Others are going into landscapes and backdrops, right? If you're dealing with the video game industry, especially. But you get that even in irregular 2D art, right? You get those people who concentrate on still lifes because they really speak to them, or concentrate on pet portraits because that's what they love. So they just work on getting better at the specific things that excite them. Maybe you love cloth. Maybe you want to be a freehand like expert, like Marika or Derek or Jess Rich. So then you would start focusing on patterns, right? And how to get them like shrunk down and simplified for miniatures. So that's education, and that's the fourth pillar. So imitation is your next pillar. And weirdly, this is one that I've always kind of jumped up to earlier in the triangle, because I don't think it ever hurts you to sit down with an example of somebody else's art and try to do what you see. Try to do what they did. Don't ask them what they did. Just try to figure it out. And this is something that 2D artists do all the time. But with a 2D artist, I think he does have it in the right position, because in order to look at one of your favorite 2D artists and really try to do what they do, you've got to have those fundamentals of understanding the shapes and how to break them down, how to manipulate the shapes, right? How shapes work in the world. So you need those pillars that come before in order to, really, really aspire to that. But with miniature painting, I think that the techniques are in some ways a little bit more simple and a little bit more accessible. So I think that you could start kind of doing that even much earlier in your painting career. Like if you see a model that's painted by, like Derek Schubert, or painted by, Jen Haley, in my case, that's just something that I did early on. Or one of your favorite painters, you get a good picture of it and you put it on your desktop or your iPad and you put that in front of you and you try to paint what you see. You can learn so much from that, but you should never concentrate on just one artist. And he makes this point. Don't just concentrate on one artist to imitate, because then you're just going to become a copy. Like your style is going to focus in on that artist. I made this mistake when I was starting, and I concentrated on Jennifer's stuff because I loved how some of the things that Jennifer did, and they were very different from my own style that I had come in with. And so I became very close to Jennifer. A lot of people were like, "Oh, you paint a lot like Jennifer Haley." And then I started diverging, and then I got complaints because I wasn't painting like Jennifer Haley. But he makes the point that to develop your own style, you're always working off of an amalgamation of all these other styles that you admire and that you look at. Like all these miniatures that you look at and you're like, oh, wow, that's so good, right? And you kind of have this little mental catalog. And if you take that mental catalog and you get the model or something close to it, and you try to duplicate an eye or a skin tone or a cloth texture, then slowly you will become your own style, using all of the styles that you love that came before that you've worked on. So if you ever wonder, like, will I ever get my own style? One of the best ways to do that is to actually work to duplicate another painter's or several other painters' work. And just to figure it out yourself. Because the way that you execute on it is probably actually different from the way that they did it. At least a little bit. So you'll end up with a slightly different result, but it will be your result. So the final thing in his six-layer pyramid is imagination. Because essentially at that point, you have your own style. You have all the tools you need to paint anything you want to the level that you want to paint it. And so that's like the holy grail. That's where you hit the master level. That's where you're no longer you've become the sensei and not the student. Although we are all, I'll tell you, all of us teachers are students to our students. Like you all bring up stuff to us and ask us questions that make us think differently about our art. So you never stop learning. You never stop developing. And a lot of times if you teach, you get a lot of mileage out of that because your students will look at things differently, and it'll make you look at things differently. So those are the 6 stages. And I watched it, and for every stage I could draw a parallel to becoming a better miniature painter, to learning miniature painting. And this is true even if you just want to be like a really good gaming painter, right? If you want to put out lovely gaming paint jobs that are just a cut above, same process. Absolutely same process, except you'll be looking at it differently. You'll be looking at, okay, how can I get this effect quickly? And maybe it involves an airbrush, maybe it involves contrast paints, maybe it involves, sketch style, Yes. And that is totally the instant gratification takes too long is it is the human, everybody likes to like have that attitude. We all wish that it would like be instant, right? We all wish that it would take faster or go faster. The thing that and people always say enjoy the journey, but it sounds just like some silly platitude and you just are like whatever. But it really is a thing. Like the way that you become an awesome person, is to enjoy the steps that you're on, right? Like I am, continually trying to become a better writer so that, my stuff will eventually sell, right? And that people will really enjoy it and get the most out of it. And I have learned that it really is about kind of enjoying, like every time I learn something new, I'm just overjoyed. Like it makes me so happy because I thought that I couldn't improve, but I can improve. And now I can see that I can improve. It's like, there's still so much out there. You've got to enjoy the learning. Got to enjoy what you're working on right now. It's key. Anything worth it in life is just, it's enriched so much by taking your time and just really enjoying what you're doing. That's why I strive to keep you guys from getting frustrated with painting. To try to give you the shortcuts and the tips that will open the, door and turn the light on for you so that you will keep at it, right? Not let yourself get frustrated or overwhelmed. It takes time, but everybody can get there. Like the biggest limitation on how far you can go in a given like career or hobby is probably, not any aptitude or talent. It's just, do you keep going? Like it's attitude. People always kind of scoff at me when I say anybody can get to the level I'm at in miniature painting, but I firmly believe it. Like the reason that I managed to get here is because I cared. I cared and I enjoyed it. And if you enjoy the hobby, you too can get here. If you want to. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just, maybe you want to be able to paint fantastic stuff for gaming and make your D&D group like have their eyeballs pop out every time you put a monster on the table. Like that's totally, valid. But whatever area of your life you want to excel in, try to enjoy the learning. Try to enjoy experimentation. Because our culture does not train us for this. Our culture trains us to want the instant gratification. Our culture trains us that if you're not good at it out the gate, maybe it's not for you. There's a lot of that going around. And there's some counter programming out there too, but it's you got to believe, and sometimes you got to not believe the naysayers. Just because you think you don't have a natural artistic ability does not mean that you cannot be an awesome miniature painter. I know so many people who never thought they would be at the level they're at. Some of them even making a living off of the hobby as sculptors or painters. And, they never thought they would be there. Maybe they weren't even intending to get there. But they got there. I mean, it's doable. All right, let's see here. So I've got some highlights on. That's pretty good. I'm going to actually highlight these horns with a different color because I don't want them to go this golden. I want them to go more creamy. So I'll probably grab my creamy ivory and bring them up with that, or a bone color, or creamy ivory and bleached linen. But you don't have to try to be an eternal student, Shadow Raven. It just happens. Like, you could go in, like, the only people who don't learn are the people who go in to teaching thinking they know it all. But if you don't enter with that mindset, you will learn things against your will. You will have your students, like, turn something on its head, and you'll go, huh. But yeah, so I think that that's a great 6-step kind of process. The last thing that he said on the video was actually structure. If you want to actually get good, like you are like, I want to do this for a living or for a part-time job or for, you know, I want to get to the point where I can maybe get a gold at ReaperCon someday or at another painting competition, right? Like then it's important to also put in a seventh little tip of the pyramid, which should affect everything going up and down, which is structure. So tackle it, even if your structure is just that you paint a little bit every day, or your structure is that every Saturday you sit down for 4 hours and you really, you have a kind of a list of things you want to learn and you work on the next thing. Like, if you want to do that, then structure is important. I mean, probably more important if you want to make a living in the 2D arts, obviously, because you're going to probably be working for a video game company or something like that. And then you have to meet deadlines and be on structure and do that, you know. The failures are more important than the successes. You learn more from the failures because, and it's our human brains that are wired for every failure to, like, have more impact on our psyche than the successes. Like, we remember bad things easier than we remember good things, and we have to fight that. But it does mean that failures are things that stick in our heads, and we can learn from them effectively. But it's never a failure. Like I think that I am with the school of thought that using the word fail is bad. Like, that using the word fail is not accurate. They always tell you to reframe that as it's never a failure, it's a learning opportunity. I didn't fail, I learned. Like, because, I mean, it's only a fail if you stop. It's only, you know, as I think Stephen King, to paraphrase Stephen King in writing, you know, it's only a failure if you stop swimming. Like, the shark only dies if it stops. So if you stop, then yeah, then you probably fail if you never pick it up again. But if you just don't quite hit your target, or it doesn't turn out the way you want it, but you still keep working on it, it's not a fail in my book. Like, I don't consider my novels failures just because, like, they could be better and I didn't do a very good job at this scene or this character motivation the first time. Yeah, and well, but you picked it back up, Valendar. Like, that's the key, right? I mean, if you had never picked it back up, then yeah, you would have failed at mini painting. Oh well. You know, you probably succeeded in other things. So it all comes down to your own goals and your own, you know, what you want to do. What is it going to take for you to be happy with your hobby? And find that. Just go out and find that. And you can still apply all those steps that I brought up. It's just you're going to be applying them in a different way for, you know, you're going to leverage them toward your specific goal. Well, then because you stop, right? If you're going to, failure is, like if you define failure as stopping, then yes, like Bomb Squad and all that, and skydiving, you know, those are absolute fails. Then if you fail once, you are failed. But they just give you fewer opportunities to learn. How about that? But yeah, so after being involved in all these creative pursuits over the course of my life so far, and I'm sure there will be more, I do have to say that It's just, I don't treat anything as a failure anymore. Like, it's just an experience, and then I integrate it, or I decide to drop that particular tactic and I move on. Yep, but make sure that like, do go out and don't forget your other pillars, Dodo. Like, remember, like, one of the things about NMM is knowing how light falls on different objects and how to, like, be mindful of the direction of light to observe metal objects in your environment. If you have, like, a sword, or you have something that you can use as, and go bring it outside and look at it. Look at how light falls on it. Look at where the shadows are, you know. Educate yourself. Look at metal online. Look at lots of pictures of armor. Go to the art museum when they're having an armor exhibition. Go to the Renaissance Fair. And then, you know, so don't, if you're just jumping in and you haven't done a lot of, like, kind of studying, then yeah, you probably are gonna fail one way or another, and you're gonna learn from it, but you'll learn even more if before you try again, you do some of those steps. So that pyramid isn't just, you know, this is how to learn. It's like, it saves you time. Like, it saves you fails. It can make you very efficient so that you get the more mileage out of each try. So, and everybody's different. Everybody's going to do it different. But I thought I would share that with you guys because I think that pyramid is very valid. And as I say, it can make your learning process more efficient. With miniatures even, it's like, you know, a lot of the practice that you're going to be doing is just painting miniatures, which you're doing anyway. So if you do it with an eye toward, you know, expanding your skill level at a certain thing, then that can help you a lot. You'll get to your goal faster. Good, Kerniko. But yeah, do still do, just like what I always tell you guys. Go out, look at metal in the environment, get online, look at pictures. That's how you really learn it. Then practice it. And try to pick simpler NMM at the beginning. A lot of people also just kind of charge ahead and just grab something, and it turns out to be really complicated. But early victories will fuel your enthusiasm and keep you focused. So, just something to consider. I'm just trying to get the side of the hair here, guys. It was a little bit wonky. Yeah, then that comes under imitation. That's actually a later stage, but as I mentioned when I was going over this particular pyramid, and for those who missed it, this is based on a 2D art video that I watched yesterday that I really liked by Proco. 6 steps to draw anything, but it's more how to learn. It's more a how to learn to art. And you can draw direct parallels between this and miniature painting, between the 2D things he talks about and miniature painting. Imitation is way down here. I started imitating more probably up here where I started doing observation. I was more imitating up there. And I think that's fair. But don't forget to also educate yourself and to observe your, things in your environment, what you're trying to do. Because otherwise what you get into, and I've been in this position, is you get into, oh, I can do this technique, great, but I don't understand it. I don't understand why it works, and I don't understand exactly why I'm putting a highlight here. And so that means that my possibilities of iterating on that, of doing the imagination part where I can just paint anything with, say, NMM, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board, going back to observation and education, because I imitated, but I didn't understand what I was imitating because I skimped on those. That happened to me, for sure. So I think it's all very organic. It's like, definitely imitate. It's definitely on the list. Like, imitating other painters can help you a lot, but also be conscious of if you're doing it but you don't understand why you're doing it, then maybe take a step back. I need to get some white in order to block in some more of this stuff. I just want to make sure that I've got all that in there. Yeah, all right, cool. And I got that side bit a little bit better. Cargo cult painting. I don't know what that is. I'm sure there are a lot of people who talk about this kind of process. I used to be somebody who just threw myself into creativity with no structure, but I got a lot more mileage out of stuff once I learned to introduce structure on my creativity. Oh, cargo cult painting, is that what it is? Not knowing why. Yes. Yeah, so essentially skipping the observation and education steps and going straight to imitation. Yeah. Totally cool. Thanks for that term. All right, what do I got here? I want a little bit more of this. I think our leather is looking pretty good here. We've got our highlights. Probably need to hit a highlight over here, but see how that's come up. So that leather is pretty vibrant, but the face is still lighter. I may need to go back to the face and even pop the highlights a little bit more. When she gets eyes, that's going to help. I need to put a little splash of bright red up here on her hair ties. That will help too. But the leather is light enough to go with stuff, but not to disrupt, I think. And it brings out the red being dark with the light leather really brings out like the details of everything. So I'm very happy with how that has worked. Yeah, like you can apply it to almost any career, right? Any learning process. Otter. That's what I loved about it. I was like, I'm sure other people have done videos on this, and he's just giving it his own spin to be, to get his views. But I thought he presented it very well. And so I liked it. I was like, yeah, that. I need to share that with my peeps. That was my thought process. It's okay. I can't think today. Like, I've got no focus brain. No focus brain. This will be fun because I have to shoot videos later. Let's see if my no focus brain can handle it. Right. So then if you want to get better at cooking, and I ran into that too because I've tried to over the past 5-10 years, probably the last 5 years really, I've striven to become better at cooking. So then like, you want to really observe, and educate yourself. So like education, a great book for that is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, which explains like kind of the things behind like why salt works, what fats go into different cookings and what you use them for, temperatures to use fats at, observation would be more like next time you saute onions, really pay attention to your heat level. When do they start to soften? When do they start to brown, right? How does the flavor change, right? That sort of stuff. So yeah, you can totally apply this to anything you want to learn. Yeah, we can stretch. Yeah, pretty much squirrel. That's where I am right now, tomorrow dog. Like I said, doing that. I'm going to finish this little leather bit here, Kerniko, and then I'll stretch. I'll make sure I've got all this leather figured out. I don't need to worry about this one back here so much, but I do need a little bit of a highlight back there. It is dark, but you do get some highlights in the shadows, so I'm just going to put a slight highlight back there. Just so I can see it just a little bit. See it? Just a little. You never want to leave something just like in the dark, because there would still be light shining back there. And then the other one I wanted to do was get this. But yeah, there's just some days where I've got no brain or no focus. I can brain all day, but I can't focus very well. So just a little bit of a highlight there to really bring that up. And a tiny bit, I think, here. But yeah, so wanted to share that with you guys. Maybe I'll do a PDF on it sometime. kind of how to apply it to your own learning, your own mini painting journey. But yeah, you will like, I mean, I think it's almost impossible not to like want to skip steps. Like people skip steps all the time, but it can set you back a bit. Alrighty, so I think that the leather is actually looking really well, really good there. I like it. It's cool. We have probably going to block this staff in with some black or with some walnut and with some russet brown highlights where the highlight would fall. One thing that people do on staves is they put wood grain on them, and really it wouldn't, unless it's olive wood with those big dark streaks in it, then maybe you would see some wood graining. But otherwise, with staves, you really wouldn't. So I used to do wood grain on stuff because I felt like people wanted it and expected it, but when I realized it was really not in scale, then I scaled it back, and either I don't do it or I'll just suggest a little streakiness. So let's do our stretches and our hydrations, and then we'll go back and work on getting that staff filled in. Maybe we'll get some silver going on. But yeah, so if you've been sitting on your lumps like I have, get up and stretch. Just a quick stretch. Doesn't take very long, just like a couple minutes. There we go. Yay! That just feels great. The arms over the head stretch always feels fantastic. But yeah, I think that just like based on what you guys are saying, like I think that you do really see a lot of people going to imitation earlier and stuff. Maybe be conscious of that and go, I mean, obviously when you're cooking, following recipes is part of the learning process. But when you're doing it, kind of pay attention. Try to focus in and look at what you're doing and think about how it could be different. Like, am I doing it higher heat, lower heat? Did I add more salt this time? You know, did I wait to put this in longer? And then, educate yourself by reading about stuff. Like learning how to pick a good steak at the store. Stuff like that. I'm going to go and do my floor stretches, and then we'll be back. Yay! Hey guys, we start a new model tomorrow. It's Mushroom Queen, Fungal Queen. We're gonna do her. We're gonna do her really colorful too. Real, I'm a squirrel. I'm like squirrel. Other than that, pretty okay. I think I slept all right. I had really vivid dreams last night. Maybe it's because I've been working on my writing so much. I'm having these like story dreams, which is funny. Like I used to get a lot of story ideas from dreams. I haven't for a while, but now my brain apparently is kicking in again. Let's see. I used Ritterlich blue for her blue, so I'm gonna get out the red and blue and kind of like do some corrections here. I've got a couple of blue streaks that got onto the red, and I want to put blue here. So I'm going to grab those colors real quick. I believe I went up to fire red on this one. Sometimes real. I don't know. My Fitbit will tell me. My Fitbit likes when I have big dreams, though. Like, in general, like, I might feel more sluggish right away in the morning, but later in the day, I'll feel much more energized. I was actually going to use the Monster Manual art for inspiration, Korniko. This is one of those rare instances where I saw the piece of art for the monster in the Monster Manual and actually really liked it. So we may not copy it exactly, but I'm going to use it for inspiration. All right, and then I need my reaperlive blue. There we are, 9115. Everybody should have this dark blue. It's just so pretty. But yeah, we'll see. I slept crappy over the weekend for some reason. Now I'm feeling I got better sleep yesterday, so maybe it's a good trend. Oh, I forgot to hydrate. I'm going to grab some red and some blue, and then I'm going to drink some water. Morning, Winterkill. All right, so let's get this. So we've got to touch up. I got a couple of spots of blue on the red. And I got, I have to paint the dagger scabbard blue. Yep, it's hydration time. Indeedy. I suppose we should really do the eyeballs on this figure. Luckily, the spot is like a blue that's not difficult to cover over with red. Ta-da! So easy. And I didn't really get those side folds. Sometimes you forget to paint the stuff on the side as much as you paint the two viewing angles. We'll talk more about that when we do the glass bottle. So I'm going to thin down this red and do a little bit more on these side folds. Going out of town this weekend for Memorial Day. Trying to get everything done before I get there. Adds an extra level of stress to the week, right? It's like vacations end up being stressful because you have to get so much done before you go on them. So reaperlive blue makes a beautiful, beautiful blue when you add water to it. It is honestly a gorgeous color. And I think I am going to use it a little bit more vibrant here for my base for this dagger. And you can do that when you are repeating a color on a model. If you are using, say, reaperlive blue plus white, using different variants on that color, and it still counts as repeating that color most of the time. So here, I'm going to use a slightly darker variant. And using a brighter version of it, less washed out, means that you can see that color. Notice, you can see it a lot better than if I had gone with the paler version. Because remember, when something gets small, it's very hard to see the color unless you make it brighter or stronger. Oh no, toxic mushrooms. I'm going to actually mix up some pure white just so I can use it for spot highlights. Sometimes I won't mix up the lighter tone. I'll just mix up some pure white, and then I'll just do kind of a quick blend with my brush on the palette instead of actually building an entire well full of a lighter color. So let's mix that up. Use my fat mixing brush to get that mixed in, and then we can go. And we can also use that when we go if we're doing some silver today. Alrighty, so I'm going to mix my blue. What I tend to do is just take a little bit of that, and mix them up just up here on the upper surface. Rub off my brush. The paint will stay wet that long, even if it's just up on the surface there. Grab a little bit of it and use it to highlight. This is especially useful when you only need tiny touches to highlight with. So you really don't need to mix a whole well and waste a bunch of paint. You can just mix it a little bit as needed. There we go. Lovely. And I think I actually want to add... Uh-oh, we've got loud stuff. Hold on. They would bring the plant cutter over. It's like trimming the hedges right underneath my window at the stream time. There we go. I'm going to bring in a little bit of this. I'm going to add a little water to this to make it more of a wash type or layering consistency, less thick, less base coat, more layer. And I'm going to shade this little cloth bit that I've got down here, or leather bit. Just to give it a little bit more saturation, a little bit more, make it pop a little bit more. Nope. Nope, it was my landscapers trimming the shrubbery underneath the window. They were doing tree trimming on the redwoods last week, which is something, because they were like perched up on the roof with the system of cables, and the guy was way up in the redwood tree, which was a fairly sizable redwood tree. Like, and they had the whole bottom area kind of barricaded off so that big limbs could land without hitting anybody. When you have to trim a very, very, very tall tree. We have a lot of redwoods around us. Yeah, 9 cents. Yeah, but you guys should not have to, like, you know, listen to my landscapers, so I'm just gonna intensify the red over here on this side panel, which I didn't really... I got the front one, like this one turned out fine, but I did not really get this area here, this one right here. So sometimes when your model only has two, like, obvious viewing angles, it's easy to forget some of these side areas. So you should always kind of double check yourself. If it's something that you can't easily see from the front or back, and that's mostly how you've been looking. Because, like, I can see this area, but that fold needed more up here that I just added. It was kind of not really painted before, not really highlighted before. So double check yourself when you're working on a model that has, like, obvious viewing angles. You should always look at it kind of from the not obvious angles as well. A good example of that would be the Templar bust that I'm working on. So, like, it's very easy to look at her from the front, and it's going to be easy to look at her from the back, but the things I'm going to have to remind myself of are looking at the lion, like, face on, and making sure that this area really looks correct with the NMM as I work on it. So, and likewise on the side, we're going to have to make sure the chainmail here starts to come together and look right, and this, and all of that stuff. So it's very easy when you've got a flat model like that to look at the front and the back and have real shortcuts on the sides if you don't pay attention. Haha, backing up BP truck. I closed my window already. You cannot disrupt my stream. All right, let's see. So that's pretty good. My blues are good. I think I want, actually, since I've got this mixed up, I think I want to put some darker blue down bottom on the crystal. Because I want to put some red more up toward the top. I kind of want a gradient. You do need some darks on your crystals. And I may change. I'm probably going to change where I put them. But for now, I just kind of want a little bit more color. Put a little bit up there. The problem you'll run into is that you do need some darks up next to like the light colors in your facets. So I'll have to really question where I'm placing these. If I sink my darks toward the bottom here, the spear is going to look not like a crystal. It's going to look more opaque. Because usually when light enters a crystal, it's actually going to like hit the bottom and there's going to be light gathering down here because it's going to be reflecting off the fixture here. That's how light tends to pass. Transmitted light tends to pass through a crystal. Whereas if I put more of a shadow up top here, then it's going to be more like a transparent crystal in that you usually do get more rich color up top and it then pales as you get down. So I'll have to kind of watch this. I'll have to see if my original idea, which was to kind of fade in some red at the tip here, I don't know if that's going to work anymore. If I want to make this staff like really, really crystalline. So I'll probably mess with it back and forth until I have something that I like the look of. But since I had this rich blue, like this more saturated version of Ritterlich mixed up, I decided to play with it now. We won't touch the glass bottle till next week, though. And so you also want to always hit your facets. And here, since we did these, since we kind of just sculpted this with an X-Acto knife, the facets are pretty shallow. So sometimes I'm going to have to actually paint them on. But you always want to hit your edges, just like with NMM, with swords and weapons, you always want to hit your edges with that white to pick up those edges. So like kind of getting those facets kind of blocked in a little bit there, just playing with it. Now I could possibly bring in some red over the top of this blue, go more purple, kind of do an overlay that way. And then go more red toward the top. I may end up repainting this whole thing. We'll see. Mostly here I'm just experimenting. I'm like, what looks cool? What do I like? What's close to the original idea I had? Or can I just make it look cool? Do I like it? So here, let's get some black in here and see. Let's get this closer. So I messed up that little facet line there. So I'm kind of just introducing some red tones in there to see if I like it, and I'll build them up. Oh, the Templar. Yeah, I worked on her. I'm really happy with the other side of the breastplate now, Bryce. That's the shadow where the sword falls over, by the way, because she's holding the sword. So there's the sword blade goes up, and then this is a hilt shadow here, and there's another shadow for a hilt over here. So, but I'm very happy with the breastplate. I've been working on her on my personal stream on Thursdays. That's at twitch.tv/paintingbig. We've been working on that Sky Earth NMM for a while, and we will continue to work on it because it is it's productive time for me, and I'm enjoying working on her right now. So Gonna have to figure out that chainmail. The chainmail's gonna be a pain. It's kind of like wings, guys. Doing basic, simple chainmail is pretty basic and simple. But when you want to do it to a really high level, then it becomes a pain in the butt. I think chainmail and wings have that in common. Lunch. Enjoy your lunch, Shadow Raven. It's taken me a long time to get here. Thank you, Real Master. I definitely have a different style than a lot of other painters out there right now. Sometimes I feel like I miss the boat on lighting a little bit, but it's not that I don't have lighting on my pieces. It's just that I'm not doing the super dramatic lighting on my pieces. And sometimes I feel like, should I be doing that? You'll run into that when there's like a particular style that's in vogue with painting. You'll kind of look at your stuff, and if you're not doing that style, you'll be like, well, I feel like my style is lacking. And that may not be true. It's just your style is different. So right now I am playing with more dramatic lighting, but I'm not like making it the centerpiece of my style. Like, to me, the centerpiece of my style is definitely like color interplay, and I like subtlety. A lot of people don't. So I'm kind of playing with different ways to get like strong effects, but for there still to be a place for subtlety in the model. I like Easter eggs in my minis. I like people to think the model looks good from a distance, but then when they get up close, I like to hear that holy crap. I like to do that. I like my Easter eggs. There we go. John testing stuff. So I'm just playing around here, seeing if I like this pink up here on the top of the crystal. I'm going to zoom out and see if I like it as a whole. Because again, always kind of zoom out, hold your model a little way apart from you, judge your color contrast. I think that I've gotten a bit dark up here. I think I want more light up here in this crystal, because it used to be quite light and that would draw the eye up. And so I think that I do need a little more to bring back a bit more of that. And at this point, I may need to actually do an actual mix. We'll see. Kind of doing some quick layering to get an idea. And some of this, it's almost easier to do on a wet palette. Like if you're doing this quick blocking in, this is one thing wet palettes are really good for, where you just have a couple of colors like on the wet palette, and you can easily do quick spot blends to kind of test stuff. It's a little bit harder on the well palette to do it. I still do it, but sometimes it takes me a little longer to get there. And I think about bringing the wet palette out, but by the time I got it all set up, I would have, been done if I just kept going with this. So. Just kind of a little back and forth. So again, lightening that up a bit. I'm going to leave these darker sections on the sides for now, though. Oh, that's nice that we have a clickable thing that you can look up the stuff. That's a cool feature. Yay, Reaper. A little bit stronger on the white there. Again, just playing around. At this point, it's never, when you're painting these things, just try to play sometimes. Like, think, I may just paint over this, but for now, I'm going to play with it. And just experiment. Kind of figure out just try to see if you like stuff, especially with the thing like this crystal where I'm just like, I had kind of a concept for it and I'm still kind of playing with that concept to see if I really like it. When you often will have an idea in your head for a figure, for something to do on the figure, and then in practice it's just not working. So it's good to just let yourself play with it. It's super easy to just rebase coat this crystal, so like don't let yourself get anxious about redoing work. It's always like you can always redo it. Just play around, keep it in your head that you can always paint over it if you don't like it. And that'll free you up to try some things and to not stress about it too much. So yeah, see, I like that kind of implied light more, where it's lighter toward the bottom. And darker toward the top of the crystal. And I'm going to glaze in a little bit stronger red, I think. But the pink here is still going to read, like it's still going to resonate with the red. Like this is just a lighter version of one of the colors that I use down here. So it's still going to count as repeating the color, even though it's much lighter. Yeah, that's a cool feature, John. Cool. Very neat. Make it a lot easier for people to find stuff from the stream. Should be awesome. Kind of want to bring that out. There we are. Just kind of playing with it. Alrighty. Yes, and I highly recommend this model. She's been a lot of fun. I really do like the metal version. Especially with all this tight detail, I think that really rewards metal. Although, if you want to just practice cloth highlighting, like I did the reds on this, then getting the bones version is, like, totally valid. Bones are great for, a cheaper way to practice when you're trying to get better at a particular surface or technique. I think I'm going to use some darker blue up there. It's about time. You love randomizers. It may bring up something you've never seen before, because Reaper just has that much stuff. Trying to get these little tiny details in here. Make these lines a little finer up there in that little facet. Mint green. Hey, it's my least favorite color. But it's a great highlighter for teals and blues. I think I'm overcoming my prejudice against mint green, actually. For many, many, many decades, I have disliked mint green, but now it has uses, so I will grudgingly allow it in my pantheon of colors. I think it's Rhonda who really likes it as a highlighter for blues and teals. Oh, how did Rhonda's show go yesterday, guys? Did you have fun? Did you attend the inaugural Bird with a Brush show? She put a green wash over a skeleton. Okay, yeah. Well, the first stream is always going to be kind of that sort of thing, right? Right, Justin? You're gonna work out the bugs. But that's great that the stream went well. Fantastic. Hope you guys had fun. Get weird. Good. Yeah. Get weird is a good philosophy. So I get your cats riled up, and Rhonda puts your cats to sleep. So we're kind of the antithesis, cat-wise. I'm just kind of futzing with this because I got a little tiny facet there. And I want it to show up, but I'm trying to not get things too dark. Sometimes it can just be a back and forth. Ha. Well, that's what Reaper is known for, right? Thank Ed. Thank Ed for cough interesting chat. Just gonna use the side of my brush to quickly hit these facets again. I'm liking that. It still needs work. It still needs work, but it's getting there. I think I do need to still lighten the bottom. I probably need to like blend in and lighten the top a bit in certain areas, but they're like, who are we watching? This new lady. But she has cats, Kuroniko's cats, so you should be like, you know, totally into her. Rhonda is definitely a cat person. Just a little bit of highlight down there, just touching up little things here and there, and we're pretty much, I guess I'll also just pop some red into those hair ties, and then we can back out and kind of look at what we've done. Just a little bit. This is real thinned down red, so it's not going to be real poppy. But it's at least going to put a placeholder splash of color in there. And on the back, probably need to do a little bit of underpainting just to bring out. Hair ties are a great thing to do a little underpainting on. Like just put down some white first and then put down your color, because when you're using them as a place for an accent color, they're usually very thin and very small. So you want to use pretty bright color on them. So putting white under it is a good idea. So I hope you guys had fun today with going over those kind of like pillars of learning to art. Hope they made you think a little bit about how you are learning on your art journey. Your mini painting journey. It is an art journey. Yeah, cool. And what else did we do? We did a lot today. We touched up some stuff. We talked about always looking at the side of your model, especially when you've got a model that's like very front to back. It can be easy to miss stuff on the sides. Just kind of double check yourself there. Talked a little bit about faceting this gemstone, which I'll talk about in more detail probably in a different stream. We did our leather and talked about why we chose this color for the leather and why it works. Let's see. That's pretty much, and we talked about kind of, you know, moving accent colors around the model a bit, because this pink up here is here because I want to carry the red up to that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what we did. We talked a little bit also about painting over like a black and white sketch, because we did that over the leather, and how to, you know, keep some of what you need from your light and dark sketch and repaint parts that you may lose. Cool. I'm glad you like her, Julie and Bob. Yeah, I think she's coming along really well. I'm enjoying her a lot. I think she's a great character. Really, really, really like her. We have to send a picture to Bobby at the end, since she's a Bobby sculpt. Then he's going to say, where'd you put that crystal on her staff for? Well, she's a half-orc, so, you know, playable race. And I painted her a bit greenish, but she's not nearly as green as you could orc. Yeah. Stippling. I haven't done a lot of actual textural highlighting on her hair right now, but if I had painted it black, I would use a blue-gray And you really want to kind of stipple because you're dealing with lots of little ends of hair, right? Lots of little nub and ends of hair. So you don't have as many strands. You have more of a different texture because it's more springy. So it's softer looking, right? You don't get the harsh highlights that you can get on really flat, shiny hair. It's more diffused. So stippling works with that, and you usually don't bring it up quite as much. Although black hair can certainly be shiny when it's the more that type of hair with the nappiness. Or dreadlocks are another good example. If you're painting somebody with dreads, it's going to be more dull. It's not going to have as sharp highlights. Yeah. So here I'm going to do dark brown, and I'll probably work it down a little bit. I want to bring it down a little bit more like it is on the back. Bring it a little bit down more before I bring it up again. But yeah, so I'll be using some stippling to bring that hair up, and I won't be going up as much as I would with a shiny hair. All right, guys, I think we're good. Reaper, who are we going to raid? Sky Daddy. Awesome. Just to get your day off to a super cheerful start, please say hi to Sky. I gotta run and kind of get my lunch and workout hour working. But y'all have a great day. Tomorrow we start a new mini, Fungal Queen. Tune in. Don't miss it. All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.